Voss, violets, a beach hill, and a toupee. Can you put that together?
No, I'm very confused.
Bappa, what are we doing here? Matt, we have a matchup between two guys meeting in the middle. That doesn't happen very often. Former heavyweight Zac Pauga, the Ripper, taking on the Beverly Hills Ninja, Jordan Wright. So Wright, typically a middleweight. Pauga, typically a light heavyweight, but he fought on the Ultimate Fighter at heavyweight. The finale was at heavyweight. He got knocked out in the second round against Mo Usman. I mean, listen, that guy was just... That guy... The motor, as they call him. He was able to go out there and get that win. This has got to be the strangest co-main event I've seen in a calendar year. The last strange one, unranked heavyweights, Jake Collier fought Chase Sherman in a co-main event in January of last year. This fight, I have no idea. And it's no disrespect to either guy. I like Pauga on the season of The Ultimate Fighter. He was heavily favored to beat Mo Usman in that matchup. He was kind of the uncrowned champ, like Tresean Gore was on The Ultimate Fighter as well. For Pauga, great first round, and then in the second round, Mo Usman realized, hey, I can punch, and he landed a knockout blow. So a good win there, but Pauga definitely had the skills. Now, it's weird to see a guy that's a few days away from his 35th birthday make his UFC debut at light heavyweight. But the same thing for Jordan Wright can be said as to why it's weird, because he's lost 3 fights in a row by finish under the Zuffa banner for Jordan Wright, Matt. He's 2-5. Now, one of them's a no contest, so that's a no contest. I'm considering it a loss. He lost to Fluffy Hernandez. He got finished, but Fluffy got popped for the weed. But for Jordan Wright, 3 finished losses in a row, and now he's fighting Zac Pauga.
Can I be honest, though? I like Jordan Wright at 205 a lot better than I do at 185. At least I do think that's going to help one of the big issues he's had at 185, which is when he gets hit by clean shots, he does get hurt more often than not. So I do think having an additional 20 pounds behind him will help his ability to absorb shots, but it will be interesting because he's not fighting a guy who he will be similar in size with. Like, Pauga will also carry more power in this division, so I'll just be very curious to see what Jordan Wright does look like up 20 pounds, because again, I think it will help solve one of the bigger issues that Jordan Wright has had throughout his career, and that's just that if you hit him at 185 pretty clean, he doesn't recover all that well, and that's been a big thing for, like, Alexander Hernandez, for instance. Like, think about Michael Bisping. In every good fight he's had, he gets dropped, gets up, and gets better. For Hernandez, when he gets wobbled, it is difficult for him to recover after the fact, and I do think Jordan Wright is more similar to him in that capacity, to where once you get him hit, he's not going to then fight in an intelligent manner and clear the cobwebs. He will start to become a bit of a gunslinger, and that gets him caught by some big shots. But again, I just want that to be said. I think the biggest storyline for me going into this fight is, how does Jordan Wright look at 205? Because again, is he the best fighter in the world at 185? No, but I do think we will see an improved version of him up 20 pounds.
And he's fought at light heavyweight in the UFC. Fought Ike Villanueva at light heavyweight. He finished him in that matchup. Now, he weighed 200 pounds for that fight. So I'm eager to see what we're going to get out of Wright. I think the most interesting part about him is his corner. Every single time out, Vladimir Matyushenko and Anthony Hardonk. It's one of the biggest, most star-studded corners that nobody seems to care about from MMA of years past. And for Zac Pauga, represents Elevation Fight Team. He was in the corner for Devin Clark, who just pulled out all the stops against Da Un Jung a couple weeks ago now at this point as this video comes out. But for Pauga, we're going to throw it on back. We're going to talk about him in his kind of UFC debut and what we really liked out of him. When I look at Zac Pauga, I expected, okay, the guy, young in his career, young in his MMA career, he's coming out of a bigger gym. He fought a decent level of competition. He beat Maluko, so that's fun. Beat him over at Cage Warriors 130. So I watched the fight, and I went, okay, you beat Marcus Perez. That's really good. Marcus Perez missed weight by, 4.5 pounds? He weighed 210.5. And in that fight, Perez wins the first round handily. Completely out-wrestles Zac Pauga. Second round, it's kind of 50-50. Third round, Perez doesn't really have a whole lot left. Pauga is the fresher fighter. Pauga's fight against Bartling on The Ultimate Fighter. A lot of single shots, a lot of jab to the body, come up with a right leg kick, and then his fight against Heiderman, pretty well the same thing until he lands and finishes him.
But what I do like out of Pauga is that at least his shots are straight. There is something on the in-between when it's not just a knockout. So for Pauga, I really do like his jab to the body. I do like some of those steadying shots. They're not necessarily the most damaging shots in the world, but they're things that are going to get your numbers up, which do matter. They're going to resonate in the eyes of the judges, which does matter. And they're going to set up your own power shots, which is going to be very important for this fight.
The thing that weirds me out about this one, if you look at Zac Pauga, and Forrest Griffin even said it in one of his fights on Contender Series, he was like, wow, that's a good finish. It was his last one. He's like, that's a good finish. This guy normally fights to a decision. And if you look at Zac Pauga fights, if every fight was 15 rounds, he'd knock guys out in like the 14th round. He'd just tire them out because Pauga actually does move well on the outside. He gets backed up a lot. He gets held up against the cage. He doesn't have great takedown defense. So in his fight against Usman, 80% had him to win. He was more than a 2-1 favorite. And now all of a sudden we're in a situation where it's the 114th ranked heavyweight on Tapology versus the 61st ranked middleweight. And they're meeting at light heavyweight.
The winner of this stays in the organization. And that's a weird thing to say for a co-main event, but that's honestly how I look at this fight. Because unless Pauga does look like a much better version of himself at 205, let's say he shows up just shredded. Like he's lost a lot of the bad weight, if you will, and he's been able to gain a lot of muscle. Maybe he will be a different fighter, but the problem is, and I'm really glad you brought it up, at 35 years of age, it is quite a bit to just assume some guy's automatically going to become a newer version of himself. And like you said, he has fought at 205. He really did only do the heavyweight thing for the opportunity in the Ultimate Fighter. It reminds me a lot of, remember when the Ultimate Fighter did that heavy hitter season? It was heavyweights versus, not versus, but it was heavyweights and female featherweights.
The Juancamilo one.
But the thing was, every women's featherweight who was on that episode immediately went back down to the bantamweight.
I just made the mistake and said bantamweight.
So that was the thing. I do think Pauga is more cut from that cloth. We will see him at a better version at 205. But again, even if he knocks out Jordan Wright in the first round, are we really going to learn that much more about him moving forward?
Well, we're going to figure it out because Zac Pauga, he's a minus 260 favorite against Usman. He opened minus 195 here. He's a minus 285 favorite. Jordan Wright, who's been finishing 3 straight fights, open plus 170, plus 235. We have a look at the Tapology votes, Matt. Surprise to us there, to you. The fans love Zac Pauga. That's why I made that Tresean Gore comparison. Like, Gore was the fan favorite. He made it into the UFC, even though he got injured, didn't make the finals. Pauga lost in the finals by knockout. I think the fans take him in this one because of the recent stretch. I'm going to say over under 75% Pauga.
I think it'll be under. I think they'll be close.
Think they're going to be close? They're over. 413 total votes, 85% Pauga, 82% by knockout. For the 15% that I've right, 73% by knockout. Matt, I haven't touched on it. Zac Pauga builds in his fights. Jordan Wright burns in his fights. So that's really a big-time deal when it comes down to this one. Who do you have in the matchup?
It's a difficult fight to predict just because either guy could win by finish. It's one of those weird fights where it's, hey, if either guy won by first round knockout, wouldn't be all that surprised just because of their fighting styles. I talked a lot about how I think Jordan Wright will be more durable at 205, but again, the issue is he's fighting bigger punchers at this division too, and the big issue I have with Jordan Wright isn't just the fact that he doesn't have the greatest chin of all time, it's his defense, and that's something that's not going to change just because you gain an extra 20 pounds, so I'm going to pick Zac Pauga in this matchup, but there's so many question marks around this fight. I don't know how many more times we could say that in this video.
I get Jordan Wright a plus 235 against Zac Pauga, debuting 35-year-old. And listen, the age isn't the main factor because he debuted at, 30 as an amateur, and then he rolled, and he won, and he won, and
Not
he won.
A lot of miles.
And what I do like out of Zac Pauga is the fact that he's really steady in his fights. He picks up his output as he goes, and he can slip those power shots in there, which at 205 and 265, we don't necessarily see as much of. So I do like Zac Pauga's style, but for the same reason that I picked Muhammad Usman when he fought Pauga, I'm going to pick Jordan Wright in this matchup too. I like the power. I like the kicks out of a guy like Jordan Wright. I think that's a big difference maker, and if these two guys get into the clinch, watch out for the really steady striking of Pauga. But man, out of Jordan Wright, there is a storm.
If Wright loses this fight, though.
Yeah, it's over. But I do like the storm out of Jordan Wright in this matchup. It's scary because the chin's been tested. But we're split on the pick. Matt going with Zac the Ripper. I don't like the nickname. Taking on Jordan Wright, the Beverly Hills Ninja. Don't really like that nickname because that's reserved for Chris Farley. But Matt, we have a really interesting fight in this one. And in the main event, uncrowned champ, former title challenger. That's the storyline right there. Blanchfield versus Santos. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.